It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here today to share with you the African value systems and what the youth can do in redeeming the planet. First, I would like to give this as a preamble. Before the 15th century, Africans are said to have worked literally naked. Men with only living clothes and women with a dark piece woven around their wrists and breasts. From that we can infer that the European historians have found more than enough reasons to regard Africa as a continent of savage, naked tribes that have not found the moral integrity to cover their bodies. Hence, let us consider us. Besides the joke, the purpose of this preamble is not necessarily to go over one of the most strange models of African civilization, or construct a argument that questions the link between civilization and the insufficient covenant of the African body before the 15th century, but rather attempt to think of it in a different way. The historians must have had their own intellectual freedom to caution and conduct questions about human behavior, but maybe they ask the wrong question. Questions that would hardly explain much about our values. They ask, but how much can we conceive their responses, their relations, and did not mind the relationship between Africans and their behavior. I believe that being uncomfortable about certain responses and behaviors in all human beings, other than oneself, is only natural, but I will argue that questioning why they behave the way instead of categorizing them to clarify is the rigid bias of historical sentiments is unjustifiable. Therefore, reasons as to why girls were brought to aspire for marriage and boys to hunt become sole providers of families while they worship deities in a form of natural endowment like the rivers and mountains, all form a much better and logical understanding of the African civilization. Africans' value systems in the pre-colonial era. Before the continent opened up to the outsiders, starting with the Arabs and later developing become what was the transatlantic slave trade, or before even the transatlantic slave trade, there is the trans-Saharan trade, which was the trade between the western part of the continent and the northern part of the continent, who were already in contact with the Arab nations. Basically, what we see is Africans have always been generous individuals that open up to strangers. First, we open to the Arab, and second, we open to the European. By doing so, we give opportunities to individuals who came into the continent and give them the space to live and exercise their intention in dealing with the people of the African society. What we really came to realize is that in this very time, the African society, it was already built with values. It was built by a communal effort where individuals come together with their collective responsibility, first organize themselves politically by either centralized or dispersed groups of individuals, in which in the centralized aspects, individuals come with custom to gather and identify individuals who serve their needs. And these individuals were also assessed by their generosity, their dedication, and their love and patriotism towards the communities that they were in. Again, spiritually, around the same time, we understood that African societies have always been very spiritual and worship their duties in linked to natural endowments. And as a result of this, people were connected to a divine rule. And these very leaders were not only individuals who lead their societies politically, but serve as a link between them and that of their gods and ancestors. It can be understood that in so many instances, these group of individuals who were leading will receive instructions through the oracles from the ancestors or from God, and therefore these instructions were brought and put into practice. In some instances, as long as these words are practiced, there has been a moment where the leader, through less selfish interest of course, will kill to the oracles to demand for certain things to be bestowed upon them and to their families. And then we all understood that some of which could have been fabricated just to make sure that they can impose authorities on the people that they were leading. One of the examples that we can infer is the Kingdom Valley of East Africa with the famous prophecy of the giant state, which is the blockbuster episode of East African history. But again, we have also seen a structure of politics like the Cosmotic Fund in Botswana, which was formed not only as a political institute, but a policy communication ground where young people, all will gather and get to discuss the relevant things for moving their societies forward. Someone may ask, again, how did we come to do all this? The answer is very simple. When we open up again to the outsiders, we let everything go down. African societies, for far too long, are made to believe that Africa will all what it started with, from the ancient civilization to what we currently have. In order for us to do things right, we must think beyond the continent. That solutions are not found on the ground of Africa. That right things are not done in Africa, but we have to rely on individuals outside of the continent for either instructions or directions in moving forward. This very lecture, that is what I intend to bring you and to remind my fellow individuals, youth across the continent, that there is a need for the Africa to look down and dig into the solutions that Africa was built before colonialism. I just want to say that Africa, whenever we're talking about our history, in most cases we limit it to slavery, we limit it to colonialism. We have to understand that Africa existed before all these things. Africa is the root of civilization. Science, technology, the advancement of knowledge, philosophy, mathematics is a product of the second dynasty and the third dynasty in Egypt. And this was 2,000 years before the coming of Christ. Therefore, Africa experienced civilization when the rest of the world wasn't here. When we look at the pre-colonial African society, it started with the individual name that was given to a child. The names were deeply thought of in secret. All individuals would gather and analyze the date of the birth of a child and then develop a name linked to your responsibility and as well as individual connections. This was observed and then individuals were given value just as the name that was given to them. But this doesn't stop there. As you develop, there were initiation ceremonies organized where a child is mentored, where a child is taught to acquire skill and livelihood skills for the mother. Elders in the communities were tasked with this responsibility, and individuals lived their lives in different areas. Melting of iron, the use of gold, carving, weaving for clothes, were all skills taught within African societies. And for especially the boys, when it comes to hunting, livestock, using bow and arrows, serving as patriotic individuals that will stand to defend their territory whenever the need arises. This has been going on, and education was linked to action. Education was linked to purpose, and it was accompanied with the love of patriotism and a knowledge of the individual who you are for the responsibilities that you owe to your society. Culturally, we also came to realize young individuals at the time were key actors in moving societies forward. Initiation ceremonies were organized, but in these initiations activities, individuals were asked in groups, but themselves individually. I am quite sure that as it is done in the Manico community in the Gambia, be it the world, the dollars, likewise we have in Nigeria and many other parts of the continent. There has been similarities. An example was the age to which people are brought into these initiation ceremonies. It is quite evident that these were grounds through which men or young boys and girls were transformed to become responsible citizens and contribute with external costs to the societies in which they belong. Again, we also need to realize that all this was evident, but what we ended up losing was our education system. And this is what resulted to the value system that we have today. We are taught to less appreciate the African values. We are taught to less understand that the African is a fellow, a brother, and a sister, but we have to embrace a system that makes us feel bad about who we are as if we are children of a lesser God. When we analyze the systems that we have today, starting from spirituality, it has been narrowed to religion, and religion promises us certain things. It promises us unity. It promises us love. Religion promises us kindness. It promises us trustworthy. It promises us health, and it promises us heaven. But at this living reality of the religions that we belong to today, are we united as a country? Are we trustworthy as individuals? Are we patriotic as Africans? And are we ready to bring solutions for the continent? If this is the promise of religion, are they a living reality across the continent? Again, when it comes to politics, individuals were loyal to the God and the ancestors and the people who stand as linked in between them and their ancestors. But today, our politics have been narrowed to few ideologies. And these ideologies are what became communism, socialist states, or capitalist state, or what they mostly use, democratic states across the continent. But one thing that is we have been confused in embracing these ideologies because they do not hold to the fundamental reality of the African society. One of the biggest things that affects us as a nation, us as a continent today, is belonging and dividing ourselves based on our ideology or ideological alignment with individuals whose sole objective was designing Africa in a way that they can be extract in nature. That it can never be developmental, but to extract raw materials, including the human resources, from the continent to the outside world. It is today a living testimony that Africans have contributed greatly in developing every other society outside of the continent, except our own. The individuals behind the U.S. success in development for the past century has been black individuals. We are the workers in Europe, and we are the workers in Asia, and we are the workers in the Arabian countries. But yet we found it difficult to build on the continent and to make Africa register the development that it deserves. Again, when it comes to globalization, someone may ask, oh, we live in a global village. Africa is not an island. We need ourselves. Well, we need partners. We don't need exploiters. That is what I have to tell you today. One of the most misused terms in exploiting the continent today have been globalization. That Africa needs ourselves. And by globalization, I mean globalization in ideas, globalization in culture, and globalization in trade. Tell me, in what way does Africa benefit in these three things? The globalization of ideas. But yet we are made to think one way. And what I see with globalization is globalization of Western ideas and Western values, with Africa lagging behind. We have been made to let appreciate the thinking and thoughts that have been locally initiated to think that Africans are not part of the right mind to think for themselves. Again, when it comes to globalization of the culture, there is African confidence, our culture, that is highly appreciated and embraced by the rest of the world, and they are teaching their children today about the continent of Africa. It does not more. What we see is a fact that cultural globalization is going in one way, where Africa is resisted now. We resist all form of cultures and make it us less appreciative of our own culture. Today, young people within the continent will hold and reference the Kim Kardashians, the Nollywood stars, paying less regard to their own community leaders. And the trends of the globe today is set by these very individuals. Are we then patriotic and are we ready to be the solution for the continent? This is a question that we must answer if we want to move ahead and if we really want to solve problems in the continent. And no longer be the peddlers of problem, but the merchants of solution, as the Professor Tigger first word. Again, one of the things that the continent have been exposed to is the fact that with these governance systems, with the trading systems imposed as a result of globalization, I believe our elders sitting here can tell us about the structural adjustment plan introduced by the IMF and the World Bank. It has been one of the greatest or the biggest instrument used by the outsiders to make Africa as a continent less developed, poor continent, less appreciative of thinking and policies as well as national initiatives. The structural adjustment plan has been helpless all African countries in the sub-Saharan region by making them prioritize their spending on things that are beneficial to the Western markets and to the Western politicians. Again, not only that, but today we feel happy to be with brands that are Western, Western values that are our own. And this is the result of the trade that we have mentioned. One thing also that is happening, the misunderstanding of the ideologies that we embrace, the misunderstanding of the religions that we belong to today, the rejection of our own traditional spirituality have resulted in a disunity along the continent, and indeed, young people are affected the most. As we sit here discussing about the future of the continent as young individuals, there are a group of young Africans in somewhere looking at another African as a threat. And if they have the chance to take their life, they will do so. And these are the same individuals that we need if we want to move ahead by transforming their mind and thinking into solution and understanding that Africa as a continent needs to prosper as any other continent in the world. Again, we have to understand that as young people, sometimes we are trapped with the notion that we are young, because therefore we cannot act now, we have to wait. The question is, what and who are we waiting for? We have to think good in ourselves. We have to start appreciating Africa as a continent. We have to start thinking solution and mediating in occasions like this to have a dialogue, intergenerational dialogue across the continent as young people in developing solutions that hold the fact that Africa is not a threat to us, but we are a force that needs to work together to register the development that our continent desires. Today, in so many instances, we've seen global partners, big companies, coming down to the continent, exploring our own resources, using our own individuals as agents and as instruments to dominate our society. And this is a living proof. To allow in development economics, make mention of the comparative groups, that the white man does not have to travel the interior of Africa to extract resources any longer. They just need a young African programmed to do that work on their behalf. We have to understand that we are graduating engineering, we are graduating law, we are graduating doctors, we are graduating individuals who serve the interests and purpose of their communities. But today, a huge chunk of that graduates are the people that are thinking in the Mediterranean Sea. These are the same young women that we see in Arab countries being exploited and taken as modern-day slaves. These are the same individuals that the continent needs to harvest their talent and potential in making sure that we can register the development that we desire as a continent. But again, seeing all this as a problem in the continent, are there no solutions? Someone may ask. The young people are the agents of change. And they are the individuals that our ancestors and our old systems are tapped in order to make sure that they have the infrastructure in their own development. They are apt, prolific, they are with disruptive mindset and thinking. The same young people are individuals that have the potentials to drive change and to drive growth among the continent. They are the innovators, they are the leaders, they are the workers, so they are the young people are the future. But that future starts now. Few weeks ago, I was reading an article by a famous scholar by the name of Jeffrey Sachs, and I was made to understand that he was the graduate lecturer last year. In this very document, brought in the Islam, he used to highlight the U.S. intervention, military intervention in the developing countries, that it has come to growth, and it has exposed its weakness and not potential by the U.S. government. But what we need to identify and draw lessons in this, and he highlighted was, our investment must be diversified into things that are meaningful. Investment in education, and I mean real education, potentials with skills, and provide a ground for African youth exercising their talents within the continent. Again, investment in the health of our mothers, our sisters, our young brothers need help and need attention. And they need us. So we therefore have to gather our skills in this very society in making sure that we can give them the development and the needs that they have. However, when we look at the continent, to some it may seem impossible to fix it. It is not yet impossible. We, the youth, have to take responsibility. And to do that, we must start questioning. We must start questioning as young people. Questioning the political, questioning the education system, questioning our social livelihood, and being part of the solution. The world where these things have also been questioned, so we must know. The problem against black people is a manifestation everywhere, in Europe, in the Americas, and in the continent. The fact that the black man becomes black only when they are in contact with the white man is sometimes bearable, but really painful. And the white man becoming white only when they are in Africa is painful, but then it comes with all the accorded privileges that we give them. I know because I've been traveling across the continent, and I see privileges where individuals deliberately ignore brothers and sisters as a result of their role and appreciate individuals just by their appearance. And this we must look into. We must start to appreciate ourselves. We must start to build respect, love, and unity among ourselves. But again, we have to be ready to deny ourselves, to make sure that as young people, this is not just for us to come and take selfish gain or selfish interest, but of course that we must start to liberate the continent, because we are the hope. And if we don't get it right this time, Africa can never make it. Before it was colonialist economic systems, now we have technology, just not the time. We must be skillful, we must be well protective, but we must be patriotic enough to save the trajectory for the African continent. And to do this, we must forget about our self-esteem. It is a cause out there that we must undertake. We must liberate this generation of Africa and generations of Africans to come. They deserve what we have experienced. And to save that, to build that, we must be the agent of change. And we have to be ready. And I will therefore want to put this question to all of us here today. That if we leave this particular hall, we are going as ambassadors. We are here as ambassadors of our own home. We are here as ambassadors of our own institution. And we are here as ambassadors of our own villages, our own towns, our own cities. We have to be ambassadors of Nigeria. We have to be ambassadors of Africa, because we are the eyes of the ear of the continent. And whoever sees us should see Africa. Whoever sees us should see unity, should see respect, and should see dignity across the board. This is a message that I want all of us to think and also to make actions towards. Again, one thing that I would also like to appeal is for us to understand that Africans have sacrificed blood. Africans have leaders that have outseen any other people in the world. We can take examples of leaders in the continent that have stand for the interest of their people. If we want to move ahead as young people, we must look into this great individual and take a back reference. We are tired of talking about our problems. Let us see examples among African leaders and build on that for the future of the continent. We cannot all be politicians, but we can all impact positive change in our communities. And that is an individual responsibility that every African has undertaken. What of us? Remember the great Pan-Africanists like Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was not in Africa. He was fighting for Africa in Europe and in America. But fighting for African descent to be able to come back and reunite with their people. His main mission was self-uplifting and self-reliance. We must be able to uplift ourselves financially, but we must be able to uplift ourselves with dignity, with respect, with values that Africa is African and Africans are the individuals who live within it, and Africans are the solution to their own problems. Another thing that is very certain before I begin with you is the fact that today when we look across the board in the continent, we see a lot of issues happening with young people. And if we really want to be a solution to the continent, we must think about ourselves. We must be ready to take up challenges, and we must be ready to learn lessons. It doesn't matter where we were born, as long as we were born within the continent or born in African blood. Materialism, dedicated to work, is the living reality and a living testimony of the African tradition. Individuals who live within the continent were great people who stood and fight for them. And that is what we need to embrace today as our people. We have to take a cost. We must not narrow our academic lenses to the curriculums. We have to read wider than that. We have to investigate. We have to make research. We have to find grounds to learn about our culture. It was the great Nigerian scholar Kino Achebe said, history will always glorify the hunter unless and until the lions have their own historians. And if we really want to move ahead as a continent, we must be ready to take up the challenge in rewriting our history. Africa is categorized as an underdeveloped continent. We are categorized as an uncivilized continent. But one thing that remains certain is every other society in the world depends heavily in Africa in order to survive. As I walk around the city, as we grow around Nigeria, all I think is great potential. These are the same potential that outsiders are trying to tap away from us. And to do that, they just have to make us less appreciative of who we are and what we can do about our own. From today, let us turn our heel into using the resources of the continent into something beneficial to our society and to something beneficial to our people. That is what the African value begins. Individuals who are not just responsible to their individual interests or make differently for themselves. But your success in the continent is measured based on your impact on your community. This is what our ancestors taught us. And this is the lesson that we must learn as Africans. Before we get to this place, I want to say one thing. There is a society out there looking for us because they are disunited. They are having an issue solving a particular dispute. There is another society out there looking for us because there is poverty. Individuals are finding it difficult to have 3 meals a day and even 2 meals a day. There is a society out there waiting for us because respect and dignity, morals and values are no longer in their area. This is the same society that waits for our answers. We have not been sent in schools for no reason. We are sent to learn, we are sent to appreciate, and we are sent to school to learn and go back and bring thanks. We must be the solution. Africa must be liberated, and young people must take up the challenge because we are the solution. On that note, I thank you all for your time. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed it, I thought I would appreciate this. Thank you very much. You can do the participation. There are very good questions that we need to ask that we can answer. Are you to the person of Nigeria? To make a recognize the strategy from the out of Shogo of Ajima
is allowed to represented here by a gentleman who's supposed to